We don't have the troops. We don't have the stuff to deal with that second half game. And that's a real problem. Here's the way I think you need to think about it. There is no battle space we can't access against a conventional opponent. They said we couldn't do Afghanistan. Did it easily. They said we couldn't do Iraq without 10,000 casualties. We did it with 150 combat dead, which is amazing. What we have trouble accessing is the transition space we hope to create beyond the war space, after mission accomplished. What we have trouble creating is the peace space that allows us to turn it over to the UN and the State Department, who frankly can't handle anything less. This is not about overwhelming force, but proportional force. This is not about projecting power, but being able to stay without becoming part of the problem yourself. Who do you access? You access coalition partners who should be in Iraq now with us. We asked India for 17,000 peacekeepers. They said no. They really wanted us to ask them because they really believe they're a huge Persian Gulf military power. Plus, their troops get paid $1,100 a head per month when they do peacekeeping, which is a moneymaker. But they wouldn't give us those 17,000 peacekeepers, and Putin won't give us 40,000 that we asked for. Why? They think we're mostly hat, not enough cowboy in that space. And they're right, because we have not invested in that space for the last 10 years, despite the lessons we took out of Somalia. So we create outcomes out of thin air, like the 30 June handover. And that's too bad, because we had 6 months of love to make that situation work. Talk to any civil affairs officer who came back. We had 6 months to get it right. They really did love us. But it's just like an electrical outage anywhere in the United States. First 3 days, it's all happy and nice. About day 4, the guns come out. And that's the same the world over. You fight different people across these different battle spaces. Here's my point. America wages war like nobody in human history. This is the everything else we got to get better at. Otherwise, we win no lasting victories. We got a brilliant Secretary of War. The problem is, we don't have a Secretary of everything else. I know, because we've been looking for this guy ever since Abu Ghraib broke us a story. And you know what? We are never going to find this fella, because he does not exist. The real problem set here is the lack of an A to Z global rule set on dealing with politically bankrupt states. We have one for dealing with economically bankrupt states. It's called the IMF Sovereign Debt Rescue Rehab Plan. You go in A, you come out Z. Is it a messy rule set? Sure, we argue about it all the time. We fiddle with the rule set each and every time we use it. But at least we got one. What would one look like if we had it for dealing with politically bankrupt states? Here's what I think it would look like, A to Z. And I'm going to talk about front half, everything right up to mission accomplished. Back half, the trouble we've had since. What we got right now at the beginning of this process is the UN Security Council's grand jury. What can they do? When people act bad in the system, they can indict them. They can talk about it in vehement tones. They can write it down on a piece of paper. They can vote on it. They can mail it to your address. Downstream, we got a Leviathan called the U.S. military, which says, in effect, you want me to take that guy down? I'd be happy to take that guy down for you. I'll do it on Tuesday. It'll cost you $35 billion. Way downstream, we got an International Criminal Court, which says, I'd love to try him, just bring him by. What we're missing is a functioning executive to take that will and turn that monster loose with the confidence of the system as a whole. And if you don't have that confidence as the system as a whole, what happens is America has to whip itself into a frenzy, because we're a democracy. We have to make it mano a mano. We haven't fought that war in 50 years. And if that doesn't work, we scream, he's got a gun, right when we rush in. And if he doesn't have one, then we say, well, it was dark. And then we say to the French, you do it next time. And they say, no, no, no. We don't like to do it. We like to criticize. Much better if you do it. What we need after that Leviathan sweeps towards Baghdad is a massive peacekeeping force that sits on that situation. We need to take the Powell Doctrine and apply it to peacekeeping. Overwhelming force. 200,000 troops on the ground would have stopped the looting, would have stopped the military from disappearing with their guns, would have prevented the rise of Muqtada al-Sadr. None of this would have happened. And I tell you, if you cut the right deals and you get 40,000 Chinese, 40,000 Russians, 40,000 Indians in that pool, then the strategic despair that's now on our side is on Zarqawi's side. Because he looks across the line and he sees three cultures who have no trouble in their history, long demonstrated record of killing Muslims when the time calls for it. The real problem with the occupation force right now is its light Occidental skin tone, which gives the cast of the West versus Islam, when it's really globalization against traditional societies and those males inside those societies that want to keep it at bay at all costs. Why? Because it's going to mess with their women. We need an international reconstruction fund modeled on the IMF. How the money gets spent. This whole package came together with Bosnia, ad hoc. I can show you every element. All I'm talking about is making it regular. Where would I find the functioning executive? It would come from the G20. They would decide how that money gets spent, just like it does in the IMF. My point is this: unless the DoD creates that force, seeds it, attracts the coalition partners, creates a winning record, the politicians across my corps will not have the imagination and the wherewithal to create that system A to Z. Everybody wants that system. Everybody wanted Saddam gone. We didn't have a system for getting rid of him without it seeming like a zero-sum game. Everybody wants Robert Mugabe gone. Why? Because 1/3 of his population is facing malnutrition this winter while he buys MiG jets from the Russians. Why? Maybe to bomb the starving people if they get too uppity. Why this matters. Since the end of the Cold War, there's a bifurcation that's been emerging inside the U.S. military. I'm going to talk about the difference between reality and desire, which I can do because I'm outside the Beltway. Here's the 90s. Berlin Wall comes down. Desert Storm. Some in the U.S. military saw a future they couldn't live with, like the U.S. submarine community. So they started moving from reality towards desire. And they created a special coded language to describe their journey of self-actualization. Like the revolution in military affairs, fourth-generation warfare, transformation. Problem was you need a big, sexy opponent to fight this big, sexy war against. And if you can't find one, you make one up. China, Taiwan Straits Crisis, 1996. I'm in love. The rest of the military got dragged into the muck. A fourfold increase in crisis response days. And we developed a very derisive term to describe this horrible situation. We called it military operations other than war. I ask you, who joins the military to do things other than war? I maintain this as code inside the Pentagon, for we don't want to do this. We spent the 90s working the messy scene between the globalizing and non-globalizing parts of the global economy. Clinton administration wasn't interested in running us for 8 years after screwing the whole thing up with gays in the military on Inauguration Day, for crying out loud. So what did we do home alone? We bought one military and we operated another. That's what gets you a first-half team and a lead that insists on keeping score until the end of the game. 9/11 changes all that. It jerks the transformation gurus out of their long-term fantasization about China, elevates mootwa, as we call it, from crap to real grand strategy, because that's how you're going to shrink the gap. You're going to nation build. Some people put these two things together, they call it empire. Bonehead concept. Empire is about the enforcement of not just minimal rule sets, what you can't do, but maximal rule sets, what you must do. Which has never been the American way of governance. It's not how we seek to interact with the outside world. We like the phrase system administrator. Why? Can you imagine your sysadmin guy coming to you and say, I just solved the I love you virus. It's going to be my new national security paradigm for the next 25 years. That would be insane. And yet that's what we do when we plan for China, Taiwan Straits 2025 and buy for that point scenario. Also, what we enforce in the system is the minimal rule sets for maintaining connectivity with the global economy.